Alright guys, welcome into another video. Today we had an update to the PTU for the advanced MFD HUDs. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that in today's video and see what that's all about and give our impressions and our thoughts and everything about it. So here we have the new advanced HUD right here. My ship's currently off, so let me go ahead and turn it on. The interesting thing about this is you have a lot of the pertinent information that you would normally have with your regular MFD UI on this HUD right here, right? So if I go to here, I have mostly the same information down here that I do up here. The only things that I don't have on this area up here is the VTOL, the gear, G-Safe, and things like that. So, in my opinion, if the MFD HUD was just this stuff right here, right, like the SCM, like all the same information, right, it should be taking away this same information down here, because now all of this is has become essentially redundant, right? So you can also turn that off, but you do lose the ability to see whether you're in, you know, your gears down, your G-Safe, your ESP, and all that stuff, which is important for someone like me because I only use ESP whenever I shoot. Using ESP the full time, it kind of like makes the nose of your ship a little bit slower, and having the ESP off and up until you shoot does give you a little bit more maneuverability, but it does at times make it a little bit difficult to fly. You do have to get used to it, but after you get used to it, it comes a lot easier to track, and it's a lot easier to deal with people who wiggle and things like that. But nevertheless, we can turn this off. So I want to go out into space, and we're going to take a look at this HUD because there's some interesting things on this HUD that we can look at. First thing is, we do have our speed indicator on this side, and we have our I guess this would normally be our altimeter if we were in an atmospheric environment, and we don't really need that while we're in space. But the thing that I want you guys to pay attention to is this part of the HUD right here. This right here lets you know which way that you're actually strafing, right? So again, I go right, it goes to the right. I go left, it goes to the left. I go down, or I pull up, and it goes up, and I go down, and it goes down. So those are your strafe inputs, right? And you can also see these inputs here on the right, because on the right we have our, that's where our 6 degrees of freedom actually is. And when I rotate and I do different movements, you can actually kind of see how I'm combining my strafes over on the right side. Now, if we still had tricording, right, these two things right here would have been a great tool to teach people how to tricord, because you're essentially combining multiple strafes input. And if you're doing it right, certain things would indicate that you're actually, currently tricording in the game. But there's also some other very unique features for this HUD. Now, I don't know if you guys can actually see this well, so I'm going to zoom into it. Right here, I have a minus sign, and that is because I am currently backstrafing, right? And you can see the little space dust particles, right? And as soon as I hit my forward thrust, it's going to turn to a plus sign. So plus sign, you're going forward, and then once you get into your backstrafe, it goes to a minus sign, which I think is very, very cool. Now, here's another thing that we can do. And to do this, I actually need to go to a planet. So let's go to Hurston. Okay, so we are now flying in atmosphere, and I want you to pay attention to this right over here on the right. As we descend, right, our atmospheric pressure is actually increasing. So this is actually very good and useful information, um, no matter what you're doing in the game, to know what type of atmosphere you're going to be flying in. Now, the closer we get to this ground, the higher this number is going to get. And that's something that I think is great. And you also have your G indicator right here. We have our noise and decoys. Everything that was down here that was like out of the way, everything that's right here, and it actually looks very, very good. And so if you're doing something like, you know, you're trying to, you know, map, or you're trying to figure out like where you're going to be at and what the conditions are going to be like on the ground, this is giving you a lot of information to be able to do that, right? So before we even go into our mobiGlass or anything like that, we can land all the way on the ground and know what the atmospheric pressure of the planet will be. Okay, as I was saying before I randomly exploded, you know, this pressure thing is actually very, very, very good for, you know, exploration type of gameplay and just overall good situational awareness to know, you know, how your ship will perform in a certain area or situation. Now, there's another actually really good use case for this new HUD. That is if you are a sweat lord and you want to get all of your basically telemetry input data from something like this when you're doing PvP in Arena Commander. If you're the type that actively records your fights, you know, you can actually use this telemetry data to see what you're actually doing wrong, or, you know, correct, you know, within a scope of a PvP fight, or you can even use it for PvE. But I mean, let's just be honest about the AI NPCs. They're mostly brain dead anyway, so there isn't much of a use case, in my opinion, for this for PvE. But that's not to say that you can't use it for PvE. I'm just saying that it's probably not that big of a deal, or it doesn't have a big use case for that. Now let's see if I can actually land without blowing myself up randomly this time. Touchdown, nice and slow. All right, so there's a couple other things that you should probably know about this system before we continue. And the first thing that you should know is that you can turn this off and on in the menu system right here. So you have your advanced HUD on and your dashboard UI, right? So you can default these both to on, and when you turn your ship off and on, those things will default to being on for across all of your ships. Now, the one thing that I wish we could turn off, you know, were the MFD casts. Now, there is this HUD course prediction on. I don't know what that exactly means, but I'll try to figure that out and let you guys know what that actually means. Okay. My ship's actually teetering on something. Hold on. Turn the engines on real quick. All right. The next thing I wanted to say is I do like the this system without having the UI dash. So I can turn the dash back on and show you guys. I just think it looks much cleaner without this. The only thing that I wish that it would retain, as far as with the MFD, with this HUD, I wish like these, the VTOL, the gear, the couple, the ESP, and the lock would remain as a part of this dash right here, and this would be like its own separate dash where you have this up here, and you have these 6 things down here, or even if they can move them even lower and put these like on the sides of the screens right here. I feel like there's enough space for it right here. But I'm going to go ahead and cover my corpse real quick. And this is your boost meter right here. I do hope the boost mechanic really like goes away. I feel like it's really not all that needed, especially with the new power management system. But we'll see. And as I said again earlier, guys, like I do feel like with these two things right here, we could really use these things as teaching tools, you know, for the flight model. And I think that, you know, this is something that'll only help more players understand how the ship's moving. And I would have loved to see this in the old flight model as well. I think it's very good. I wish the missions were working, because I would love to do a bounty contract just to test it out. Let me see if this one will actually load. I don't think it will. No, it's not gonna load. But I did test this out on stream, and you know, I was fighting other players and things like that, and I did excuse me, I do really like this HUD. I wish it would have came out with the initial MFD changes, and I think they would have been much more well received. Let me go ahead and turn the dash back off, because I don't really. There we go. I don't really like the dash, but I do feel like this is a much cleaner look. I do think that it looks a million times better than what we had before. You know, the ability to have all of our, I guess, very important information at an eye's glance away, like having your fuel and your quantum fuel right here, instead of having to dedicate an entire MFD screen just for that while you're in, you know, quantum travel. It just allows you a little bit more flexibility with your MFDs, to where you don't need to exactly put a lot of different things on your MFDs. You can have other stuff, you know? So now, like before in quantum travel mode, because I didn't have, you know, this on the screen, I would have to date an entire screen to self status. But now that that's right there, I can leave this MFD for something else. You know, I could leave it for scanning or communications, whatever, you know what I mean? So I just feel like this is much better. It looks very good, and the UI design of it is actually very good. So kudos to CIG. I'm not always trying to you know kick CIG and things like that. When they do something good, I'll say it. You know, I don't have an issue with that. So this is a kudos to CIG, and I feel like this is, you know, a much needed change, and hopefully in the future we can see this being used as a teaching tool to explain to new players how to fly, and explain to new players 6 degrees of freedom, and hopefully we get some form of tricording back into the game, because that is actual real physics. And yeah, this is great. So any other questions, let me know what you guys think about this new HUD down here below in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.